And thank you very much for welcoming me here again. It's good to see half of you all and good to see everyone out and about. We've been very blessed to have technology like Zoom to continue to do the work we do. It's so much better to see each other in person and to get homemade food. So thank you for the warm welcome. I'm so happy to be here tonight. And I also want to announce we have a brand new board member that's also a member of y'all, Lisa King. We're very excited that she's on our board. She's in our water policy group too, working on policy and continuing so we get to share her wonderful energy and all the things that Lisa does. So welcome, we appreciate you joining us. And while the talk tonight is about the Ocklawaha River, I am still the St. John's River keeper. But the restoration of the Ocklawaha was one of the most controversial projects that we've ever worked on. It's also one of the most important. And it's really the one project out there that truly has the ability to restore and make the St. John's River more resilient, and not just the St. John's. It also is critical to restoring Silver Springs, which is the largest freshwater springs to the St. John's River. And it reconnects 4 different ecosystems from Silver Springs, the Ocklawaha to the St. John's, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean by providing that natural link of fresh water. So I wanted to walk through with you all some the background on why this is so important, how we can work together to make it happen, but more importantly, hear from you all. This project is 100 miles away, and so it may seem like it's very far and disconnected, but it is truly of significant importance to the St. John's, and I want to share that information with you all, get your feedback on. So this is the St. John's River watershed, and so it's a huge watershed. It's actually, the St. John's covers 8,800 square miles, meaning if rain falls anywhere in that light gray area except on the coast, just west of 95, it all drains into the St. John's River. So if there's a raindrop that falls in Orlando, it eventually makes its way out here to the Atlantic Ocean, right out the back doors here. And so for us to truly protect the St. John's River and defend the river, which is our mission, we can't just work in Jacksonville. Even though our offices are here at Jacksonville University, we have to work in this entire watershed. And it's for that reason we actually have a board member down in Brevard County in Melbourne. He's put together the Headwaters Advisory Council. They've been instrumental in helping us with ways to stop pollution that happen in the headwaters of the St. John's and Indian River County and Brevard. We have a Middle Basin office in Volusia County in downtown DeLand, and so we work with partners there to make sure we're doing things all collectively so our river's protected right here. We have to look at it holistically. The arrow is pointing to the confluence of the Ocklawaha River to the St. John's. The Ocklawaha, even though it's currently dammed, it was dammed in 1968 as part of the Quail Cross Florida Barge Canal. It is still the largest tributary to the St. John's. On average, it provides up to 29% of the flow of the St. John's River. And in times of drought, it has been recorded to provide 80% of the flow of the St. John's River. And so it's of significance because that helps balance out saltwater intrusion, which happens specifically in times of drought. It's also a spring-fed river. There's more than 20 springs that are beneath the pool behind the dam. And one of the benefits of this, it actually restores more than 20 springs in addition to Silver Spring. So why is it important to us right here in Jacksonville? What we're continuing to see, and it was just one of the highlighted items in the St. John's River report that just came out from the Environmental Protection Board of the city, that we're continuing to see saltwater intrusion go further and further upriver. When we see more saltwater going further upriver or going south as the river flows north, that causes damage not only to the grasses and wetlands, but also it provides damage to submerged trees. And we'll talk about all the different impacts that will have in a minute. But what's causing the saltwater intrusion? There's not one problem, it's multiple problems. The dredging's underway. We've been dredging the St. John's River for more than 100 years. Every time we dredge the river deeper, it allows more of the Atlantic Ocean to come further in. So that brings salt water. Also sea level rise. On average, the water level in downtown Jacksonville has increased by 5 inches since 1970. And so we're already seeing significant sea level rise, not only at the Mayport station, recording stations, but all the way in downtown. That brings in more salt water. Overuse of the aquifer. The St. Johns River is a spring-fed river, and we're using more of our aquifer water than rain is naturally replenishing it. And so that's causing a reduction of spring flow, which is about 30% of the flow of the St. Johns. So that's reducing the amount of spring flow. So that's drawing more water. With the St. Johns River being so flat, when it doesn't have enough fresh water getting into it, just more of the Atlantic Ocean comes further in. So all of these things are driving the saltwater intrusion. And for us to restore the St. Johns and give it a fighting chance, we have to do something to offset it. And why is it important? When you are looking in the freshwater sections of the St. Johns or even the brackish areas like on Goodby's Creek and Julington, you see these wonderful submerged grasses and wetlands. Those are not only important habitat if you like to fish, they're also the kidneys of the river. And so they filter out the pollution that's going in. They also are sponges for flood control. So they provide flood control, they absorb water, and they stabilize our banks. And so these natural features of the St. Johns we're losing at an alarming rate. Some of it's due to development, but some of it's due to that saltwater intrusion for all those different reasons. So we lose all of the important ecological features or value that they provide in flood control, habitat, and biofiltration. And that's lost as we get more saltwater further inward. And when you lose those wetlands, you start seeing more blue-green algae. And because the water, our river just can't handle the amount of pollution it's getting in. So it literally allows our river to turn toxic, like this outbreak in 2015. So what does the Ocklawaha do? If right now the dam's in place, it's disturbing the natural flow of the Ocklawaha all the way to the St. Johns. And by restoring that natural connection, it actually increases the freshwater flow. And then when you have a free-flowing river, the water temperature is cooler. The water is clear. And it's actually better water quality because you allow more of that spring flow to get to the St. Johns naturally before it sits behind the dam and gets warmer and has less dissolved oxygen, which is important for the fisheries and everything that depends on the river. So let's look at the Ocklawaha by the numbers. And some of these are direct benefits to the St. Johns, some are to the bigger ecosystem wide. One of the things that is of importance to many people in the DeLand and the Middle Basin part of the St. Johns is Blue Springs. Has anyone been to Blue Springs in the wintertime to see the manatee? It's a phenomenal tourist attraction. The problem, they're getting too many manatees. And there's not enough space for the manatees to have warm water refuge, and they're eating too much of those submerged grasses. By opening up this dam, you actually allow safe passage all the way to Silver Springs that will help with some of the algae issues in Silver Springs, provide more warm water refuge for manatees, and provide a tourist attraction in the wintertime for Silver Springs for Marion County. So the additional safe passage for manatees is an important feature of this restoration. It will restore up to 150 million gallons of freshwater flow to the St. Johns River estuary every single day, which is significant. There are 6 historic fish and shellfish species that will benefit from the restoration and the replenishing of the estuary, the St. Johns River estuary with the fresh water. There are 20 lost springs, which I mentioned, underneath the dam. And there's 15,000 acres of forested, of wetlands forest that will be restored. When the crunchers came in to make the channel for the cross-Florida Barge Canal, they actually ripped out 8,000 acres of cypress trees. By restoring this, you get those areas back. It also, down from the dam, between the dam and the St. Johns River, there's 7,000 acres of cypress trees that aren't getting enough water. And so they're dying, they're slowly dying, and this replenishes the 8,000 that's currently under the pool as well as that 7,000. Wetland forests are the best biofilters that nature provides. They're better than mangroves, they're better than wetlands, they are top notch. And just if you use the wetland mitigation calculation that the state uses, This restoration would offer more than $1 billion worth of mitigation credits if this was being calculated by the way the state deals with mitigation. So the value of this is immense. Just to give you an idea of how important it is, about 5 years ago, the Army Corps of Engineers spent $200 million to restore the headwaters of the St. Johns. This restoration is about $25 million, but the benefit is much greater. So it's a very cost-effective way, but more importantly, it gives us a fighting chance to protect the St. Johns River estuary from this increasing saltwater. And it is of statewide significance. One of the challenges is the Ocklawaha River discussion has been very localized. We've been looking at that very small footprint in Palatka and not recognizing that it's reconnecting 4 different ecosystems in a significant portion of the state. And so here's a picture. Actually, this is not Rodman Dam. Yes, it is. Sorry, it's looking from the natural park. So this is Rodman Dam looking from the pool side, and that's the side that looks very straight and man-made. It doesn't look like a river. That's the connection that they cut, and the actual river flows off to the right. But the dam has become a sense of pride for the local community. A lot of people grew up fishing there. If I grew up fishing there with my grandfather, I would probably have a connection to it as well. And if it was a naturally functioning lake and it was a healthy ecosystem that wasn't causing harm to the St. Johns River every day, to the Ocklawaha every day, and Silver Springs, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. But unfortunately, it's not a natural system. And every 3 to 4 years, they have to drain the pool like a fishbowl to clean out all of the invasive plants that are growing in it, as well as you get a big flush of nutrients and other pollution. And so it's a system that's broken, and it causes harm every day it's in place. And that's why more than 33 organizations from across the state have come together to make sure that we focus on making the restoration of this project a reality. The Cross-Florida Barge Canal never happened because 1, it was too expensive, but 2, people came together and said, no, you can't cause this environmental destruction across the state. And it was actually halted by Richard Nixon in 1972. But unfortunately, the dam was already in place and it's been there for 50 years. In addition to the environmental harm that it causes, the dam is 50 years old. And so part of the problem, it's starting to have cracks, there's starting to be problems, and there's 200 homes downstream. If it fails in a heavy rainstorm or hurricane, it would be flooded out in the area of Palatka. And so it's an environmental issue, as well as that there's a real flood risk associated with the old dam. So what we're focusing on is taking what's been a very localized Palatka, Putnam County conversation in the smaller red area and broadening it out to the regional discussion that recognizes the regional benefit and value. But it's not easy because it has been very localized. And we have to have the local discussion at the heart of the bigger regional side, because this isn't something that anyone wants to be told what to do. We want to work with the community, work with everyone in the bigger area to see if we can do something of significance that protects this area and has an economic incentive. We got to be honest. We want to make sure that we're doing things that will benefit not only our river, but our river economy in this entire area, as well as the springs economy in the spring. So one of the things we did was brought on an economist. The University of Florida has done 4 studies on the economic discussion, the side of restoration of the Ocklawaha. And we brought on one of those retired economists from University of Florida, because what they always did was look back. They looked at what the dam provided. The dam and the reservoir, they do provide 0.02% of Putnam County's economic picture, but it could be easily offset and increased dramatically with restoration. So we brought the economists on to not only look in the past, to take those numbers and project forward to determine how beneficial this could be, not only environmentally, but economically. And these are the things that he came up with. Looking at the ecological benefit, there's actually ways to take the 150 million gallons a day, the restoration of the the St. Johns River estuary, the habitat that it provides, as well as the areas of floodplain and forest restored. And you actually can calculate the return on investment and environmental benefit just on this piece of it. But most politicians, they don't want to look at just the environmental, they want real dollars and cents. What does it mean for jobs? What does it mean for quality of life? What does it mean for property value? So we took it one step further to make sure that we could show with real data, real information, that this would benefit the economies in Marion County, in Putnam County, St. Johns, Clay County, all the way up to Duval, because we're not just looking at this from a restoration project and lead, we're looking at it from recreational access. How do we provide more fishing for people with boats, but also people that don't have boats that want to fish on the bay? How do we provide more opportunities for people to come together and spend money in downtown Palatka on the St. Johns River? How do we work with community leaders to figure out what they want to see? And just based on survey information from people that use the river during the drawdown as well as normal times, they determined there would be an $8.1 million economic impact. That's also incorporating the cost and a 7.6 return on the annual return on investment. And so we have not only the environmental side, but real economic numbers that has been peer reviewed by University of Florida to determine that this is a smart investment. And this is speaking to the politicians at the local level as well as the state level, but you can't get there with just that. You have to get to people, because people have a connection with the Ocklawaha, with the Rodman pool, just like you all have a connection with the St. Johns River right here. So we can't ignore that. So we're spending a lot of time focusing, talking to people that fish on the banks of the Ocklawaha, that fish on the banks of the St. Johns and Putnam County, maybe in Ocklawaha and Marion County. And what type of fishing are they doing? What are they trying to go after? What type of access would they want? There's a group of bass fishermen that were totally against this restoration for the longest time. Now they're starting to see the benefits of fishing in Willaca, which is one of the biggest fishing places on the St. Johns as well as downstream. You're really focusing on some of the fish that will come back. Striped bass was a big trophy fish back in the day before the dam. And if you open up that natural migratory pattern, you should see striped bass coming back. And so there's other opportunities like that from a fishing perspective. And we actually started working with guys that like to fish for redfish. And because the benefit of providing the fresh water to our estuary is what makes it that magic mix. Our estuary, which begins at the Ocklawaha, where it meets the St. Johns, runs 100 miles all the way here to Mayport. And it has to have that delicate balance of fresh and salt water, because more than 90% of the fish that live in the St. Johns, they need both at different parts of their life cycle. And our estuary gives it to them, but this would provide that connectivity. So looking at the fishing, but then also investing in the local community. This work will never get done if you have Audubon, Florida, out of South Florida saying it needs to be done. If you have St. Johns River Keeper here, we have to have the communities within that bigger footprint. And so we're actually working with many people. This is actually Sam Park. And if you're wanting to ever go down and see Alaska through the eyes of a local, you need to meet Sam Park. I'd love to introduce you to him. He actually grew up fishing for bass with his grandfather on the Ocklawaha before the dam. He now lives on the St. Johns River just south of Palatka. Fishes almost every day if he can. I follow him on Facebook. So it's all about, and he would never talk about restoration publicly. But now he's one of the main leaders in Putnam County, talking to the leaders, actually holding a task force group with his fellow bass anglers. What if restoration happens? What would we want to see? And he also created the Bartram Trail. Bartram travels on the St. John. He actually has a trail. You can go check out some of the sites he wrote about. But it's investing in all these things to really bring the science to life. This restoration has been studied by federal and state agencies now for 30 years, and the science is overwhelmingly compelling. But the social aspect has never been addressed. We're bringing people together and coming together not only as people who care about the water, but people who care about the community. And that's the focus now, is bringing the science together, but bringing it together to the community in forums like this, not only in Putnam and Marion, but in that bigger circle to see how we are all connected. Because when it's raining at the Rodman Dam, that rain eventually comes right out here, and it makes its way into the St. Johns River. And so we have to figure out a way to provide that natural flow as much as possible. So what can you do? Our next big unveiling we're going to have is on December 2nd, and we're unveiling the Great Florida Riverway. You know, one of the challenges, this has already been the conversation has always been around, are you for the dam or against the dam? This isn't about the dam. In fact, we're advocating to keep part of the dam because there's good fishing on the dam, and there's a park on the dam. There's opportunities to build more access at the dam. We want to breach it to create the Great Florida Riverway, which will connect Silver Springs, the Ocklawaha, and the St. Johns River as God intended and how it naturally once was. So we'll have the unveiling of this. It'll be a Facebook series. We were hoping it would be in person, but we'll be, and we'll share that with you all. And it will have conversations from people who live in the area, who live in the bigger footprint. There's also a group of University of Florida students who are mapping out some of the opportunities that we could see with the Riverway, to really focus on the positive and what it can give, this restoration could give back not only to all the communities, but also to the St. Johns River. So I wanted to share this with you all. Obviously, as we talked about earlier, y'all are 100 miles from this. So I wanted to bring it to your attention to get your feedback and to get your thoughts and answer your questions. But also, thank you for the eyes that y'all have provided us for many years on the St. Johns River. And just because we're working on the Ocklawaha restoration, we're continuing to do all the work that we've been doing for 20 years now. And we rely on you all as eyes and ears on what's happening out here. In addition to the Ocklawaha River, we're continuing our work with Lisa on the City of Jacksonville Resiliency Committees. Shannon Blankenship, our advocacy director, has been working on making sure that we are dealing with flood control and other resiliency opportunities in Jacksonville, and continuing to watch pollution issues throughout the area. Just this morning, I was at the Water Management District speaking against water withdrawals in Central Florida. And so we're continuing to do our work to make sure that we're not only protecting and defending the river from harm, but with the Ocklawaha looking for opportunities to restore it. So thank you for your time and opportunity to speak about this. And I will be happy to answer any questions or listen to stories or comments you may have. But Scott, or maybe you want to start out with the question?
Yeah, well, you alluded to, thank you for coming out. You alluded to the fact that we're 100 miles away from Oklahoma, but I think it's pretty well explained that how close we really are to it. My question is about the return on the investment.
Yes.
So the cost part of it, then there's a cost for removing the dam itself, that portion of the dam. Then what other costs do you expect would be incurred? I mean, are there kayak launches or that kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, so the $25 million is specifically for the restoration of the Ocklawaha itself. And so yes, there is breaching the dam, but there are some other damage to some of the connectivity of the other tributaries that have to be restored. There's some invasive plant management that has to happen with the water that's set behind the dam for years. There's lots of invasive plants and muck that would have to be removed. So it's a phased approach. You can't just take a stick of dynamite, blow it up, and let it all come out, and we'll get a lot of muck that we don't want in the St. Johns River. And so it's that phased approach. There's some work that has to be done on the across the part of the Florida, the cross Florida Barge Canal that's still there. And so it's a series of re-stitching together nature the way it once was connected, but some of the cuts, undoing some of the cuts that were made. It's not. So the Cross Florida Barge Canal was originally done by the Army Corps of Engineers, but they actually gave the dam responsibility over to the state. So the state's been managing the drawdown. So it's actually the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And so one of the good things about that is the state has dedicated funding that's for restoration projects and water conservation that could be used for this. So it wouldn't have to take money away from other projects. But it is another kind of interesting wrinkle. The dam, though, sits on partially state property, and part of it is federal property of the National Forest Service. The National Forest Service, they've been advocating for 20 years to restore it because the water levels are flooding out their forests that they want back. And there's some significant issues with that. So they've been fighting with the state behind the scenes. And so we're working at all different levels with federal, the Army Corps, everyone to see this happen. Because the Army Corps actually is the one that enlightened us to this when they recommended this project to offset the damage of the dredging. But unfortunately, they valued engineered the mitigation out and cut it from the project. They still advocate for it because, again, the science is there, but we have to address the community. We have to work for the greater good of what this can provide this whole region, both economically and environmentally. Yes, sir.
Lisa, so based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like there's going to be necessary legislative action that hasn't already taken place, and in what you're doing, and having the fortunate experience of hearing Lisa, my wife. This is one of the early rollouts of a presentation that you're bringing out. I mean, first time, I don't know, but tell us what you need from us, and in turn what we can do with the state legislature.
Most definitely. So the one of the challenges has been is when the governor asks, if the governor or anyone asks about the projects, they go to Putnam County. And we have to make sure not only we're working with Putnam County, but we're working with Duval County. We're working with St. Johns County. As part of the December 2nd rollout, we are going to be doing a call to action to the governor, as well as we'll be going to the different delegation meetings across the state. I wish we could say we have a piece of legislation. We don't have that yet, but we're laying the groundwork that this is important. And so explaining to people, our Duval delegation, our legislative leaders, why it's important to Duval County, why it's important to St. Johns County, and letting those know, and just so they see the connectivity. And then we do the call to action, because this truly is as important for North and Central Florida as the Everglades restoration is in South Florida. But right now, we haven't had the universal voice. Back in 2010, they did, no, what did they do ever? Anyway, back when they were really, South Florida came together on the Everglades restoration, all you heard was send the water south. Well, this scenario, we need to send the water north and make sure we have that voice. So we will have a call to action to the governor, and we're asking members to let their legislators know this is important to Duval County in this part of the river.
Well, normally in these kinds of situations, obviously, it seems like a no-brainer to me, but who's in opposition to this?
It's very localized in Putnam County.
Okay, because of the bass fishing capital.
Right.
Yeah.
When Rinaman first happened, and it was very interesting, back when they put the dam in, Putnam County didn't want the dam, because they were afraid it was going to destroy fishing on the Ocklawaha and the 20 springs that are down or beneath it. But when they had the dam, they felt like they were forced to have it, weren't happy about it, but then they had it, and it became a good place to go bass fishing. The problem is when these artificial pools get older, they lose productivity. And so their bass fishing, while yes, you can still find some good ones in it, it's not as productive as it once was. Most of the fishing is really active now during the drawdowns, and it's people fishing on the river because they're outflowing. And so by reconnecting the migratory patterns, you actually increase the amount of fish, the different types of fish, not only in the Ocklawaha, but also in the St. Johns. So that's where some of the fishing folks that live in the area are coming around, because they're seeing it's better fishing in a bigger area. The problem is there's some people that want to fish right there in in the pool behind Rodman. When the University of Florida went and did a study, there was about 18% of the people that were coming to fish said they would not come back and fish there. Sorry, they're not gonna come back and fish. There was a 25% that said, oh, we'll just come fish over here. We'll fish in a different area, because there's also Lake George, there's Crescent Lake, there's some other big lakes if you like to lake fish. There's also the other river, the river, which will be great fishing. And so the economic analysis did count that there are some people that may not come back, but it also shows there's more people that will come, because not only will you have great fishing, you'll have more springs for people to come to, you'll have more hiking, you'll have more hunting opportunities, you'll have more outdoor recreation to pull people to, which is one of the most growing economic sectors right now, especially with COVID. People are getting reconnected with nature, and we think that will continue. So there's definitely some, guys that are going to be saved, Rodman, till the very end time. And we think that the benefit, and we believe we're starting to get more and more to come on, but it's meeting and having a forum with them. And sometimes it's not pleasant. I mean, but it's important, because you can have more fishing, right down the river from where they are. Luckily, we've been able to get some of those folks on. There's also some fishing guides. They've made a very good living showing people where to fish in the pool, because with all of those tree stumps, and I don't have a picture of the tree stumps. In some of the pool, when the Corps just flooded the trees, they didn't cut them down, and they all just broke off at the same level. And so when they drain it, there's just this ocean, there's tree stumps out there. And the guides make a lot of good money trying to help people, navigate their boats through that. It's dangerous. We don't know where to go. But that's what is critical. What other ways can we do? There's discussion of actually looking and trying to find investors to do a bass fishing lodge right on the original cross-border barge canal. There's talk of doing some really creative things to try to build on what is naturally there. And what Palaca was a thriving tourism place before the dam and before air conditioning and all those different things. But there's a huge opportunity to build on the history as well as that water connectivity. Yes, ma'am.
I love this logo, and I think that we all understand that when you name a place or you put signs up, you change the way people see where you're at. And with our new signs, I'd love to be able to take this logo and put it at the end of each one of our, where we have a local spot that's not, because we now live on the Riverway. We can say we live in the North Florida Keys, but we also live on the Great Florida Riverway. Right. And the more you use that terminology, so I love this idea, and I'll do anything to help, further that, because the more you use things like this, people get it, they understand, and they like to, I'm from there. I live on that.
Well, and thank you for that. It is that connectivity and that sense of pride. And, there are people on every stretch of the 310 miles of the St. Johns River that love the St. Johns just as much as you all do. But, we're not all connected. How can we better connect ourselves and not only protect the river we love, but then come together and just celebrate all the things that the river gives us from eating. It's very exciting. Thank you for that. I'll share that with our team, because it is reconnecting the river, but also connecting all of us.
Right. And putting more of those signs out along the whole route.
Right.
So when people stop at the little touristy spots, they'll see, oh wait, this is part of that riverway. Oh, but we were there like 3 days ago, way up there. So yeah, I think it's great.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments or observations? Yes.
What's the timeline and the expectation for reversing the 50 years of changing the ecosystem and changing what you're saying is to restore it back to what it was 50 years ago? I mean, how long is that going to take? How long is the project taking, and how long before you would expect the ecosystem to be restored?
Well, it definitely is in phases, but some of the benefits are pretty automatic. In fact, one of the reasons we know about how much freshwater flow will be restored and that better temperature and water quality is every time they do a drawdown every 3 to 4 years, the water management district's been out there taking that data. And so that as soon as the breach is open and you have those springs flowing and you have that, you'll get that benefit of that spring flow, better cooler waters or better temperature. But then the ultimate forest is going to take more time. It takes longer for the forest to grow back. And you can actually see some of the cypress trees sprout out during the drawdown, but they project that it'll take about 10 years, to get something beyond sort of, it'll look kind of like a salt marsh with some of the wetlands coming back. Then you'll see the trees. For mature tree canopy, it'll take 30 years. You can actually go, there's the Ocklawaha Outpost, which is a great place to go and see what this natural Ocklawaha looks like. All of those trees were cut down during the cross-border barge canal, and now it looks like old growth forest. So you can see that it will happen, but it is staggered. It's not, the fish migratory patterns will open up quickly, the free-flowing water will open, but the forest will take a little bit more time. But there's different benefits of the different stages for different bird populations coming in, as well as some activities. Yes.
Aren't we having an oyster roast to benefit the river keepers sometime soon that people might be interested in hearing about?
Thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate that. We are having it's our annual oyster roast, many years, I can't remember the number. And we are doing it a special COVID-19 feature, but it's going to be pretty exciting because this year our oyster roast is going to be a drive-in movie format. It's November 20th, correct? Is that right? November 20th. And we're going to have oysters like always, but you bring your car and you bring your picnic, and we're going to have a live band that's going to be fantastic. We're going to have some movie clips showing a lot of the adventures out on the St. John's and the headwaters on the Ocklawaha. We have a silent auction where you get many, many good things, including fishing trips and some good outings. And that is, it's our annual fundraiser. And so thank you, Board Member Lisa King, for reminding me to invite you all. And what I'll do, I'll send a connection to this invitation and to our oyster roast to Scott to make sure it gets out. But it's going to be at the fairgrounds, the oyster roast. And I think it's going to be fun. It'll be different. But there's a local theater in town doing drive-in movies, and it's been quite a hit. So it gives us a way to come together and socialize from a distance, but be able to do some fun. At this time, it's for a good cause, so we'd love to invite you out. We're also doing a series of tiny doc series. And we had our first one at one of our members on the Ortega River invited us out to, they put a band on their dock, and then people come by boat and listen to the music, then do donations. And that's been a really nice fundraiser for us and get people out of the water. And one of the things we're considering is trying to do that in some other areas of town. Now that it's getting dark earlier, it's kind of hard to get out that far in Ortega, but that's something we may have to talk to you guys. If there's somewhere safe, if there's somewhere like on a tributary where people can dock and listen to, anchor and listen to some music. But, anything we can do to get people out on the water and see what's going on, we want to do. And then that's something too, please, if you see things happening, especially with the dredging going on up here, if you see water that has too much dirt stirred up in it or anything that looks not right to you, please let us know. We want to investigate and continue to work with you all to do the best we can for the river and have some good fun too at the upcoming oyster roast and some of the doc series. And then hopefully next year we'll be able to do more things person to person, but we're having to do our, how to get creative this time. So thank you for that. All of this information is at stjohnsriverkeeper.org. We will send you the call to actions when we have the governors. I am speaking to the Duval delegation on November 23rd to start working. We're taking baby steps, and so we will continue to send information out as our call to actions come into place. But thank you so much for the time and for the invitation. It's good to see you all.